Good afternoon, welcome back, runners. This is not a recording. I am live. I was here about an hour and a half ago doing our first core strategy session for the RBC Brooklyn Half. Today, I am joined by Dr. Todd McGrath, MD, for the Hospital of Special Surgery, hopefully helping guide runners here who may be having some last-minute pains or any issues race week, as well as managing pain before, during, and after the race. Todd, how are you doing today? You feeling okay?
Doing really good, yeah. Yeah,
you have to commute into the city. We're talking before that, so you have a little bit of a hoof to get here, but thank you so much for joining us today. Runners, shout outs you have and questions you have, please leave them in the chat. Race related, injury related, hopefully not too bad injury related. Everybody wants to get to the start line feeling good as the RBC Brooklyn Half Marathon is back for the first time since 2019. Very excited. Yes, the weather does not look ideal, so if you have any running related questions with the heat, with warmth, stuff like that, myself, Todd can help you guide you through those questions that we have there. We're going to kick off the show here. It's kind of with some basic ideas of when runners are the week of the race, where runners always kind of get in their own mind a little bit, trying to figure out what am I supposed to do here, what am I supposed to do there. Over these last few days, if a runner is feeling any soreness, hopefully no injuries, what can they do kind of leading into these races in the last few days to maybe get themselves race ready, run ready, however you want to put it, Todd?
So that's a great question. And the first thing to do is to maintain staying calm. Realize that most of the work has been done. It's normal to be a little bit sore. You're in a taper. Things are healing. The body's getting better. You're getting closer and closer to race day. You're getting closer and closer to feeling really good. But it's not uncommon to have those little aches and pains and those little things that get you a little bit worried right up until race day, pretty much. And some of that can just be nervous energy from the race as well. So don't get too worked up over it.
Yeah, we have a lot of first-time half marathoners out there. A lot of people have been chiming in. I've talked to a lot of them. I do our group training sessions here in the park. I work with Team for Kids. We have a lot of people doing their first half marathon. If the pandemic did have one silver lining, not many of them out there these days, is that a lot of people found running. We had to find activities we could do on our own again. Yeah. We have a lot of people out there. So again, first-time marathoners out there, first-time half marathoners, excuse me. Any questions you have, please leave them in the chat. Let us know where you're listening from. Obviously, at this point of the game, there are runners maybe out there, they've done their training, maybe it's gone well, maybe it hasn't gone well, you're having some little aches and pains here or there. What can runners, we'll put it in quotes, experiment? Obviously, people are looking for something to help them get to the start line and then more importantly, get to the finish line. We always hear stuff like KT tape, different kind of rub down, ointments, massages, chiropractic, what kind of things should runners be experimenting? If so, it's obviously a broad question and we're always going to warn people about what they want to do, but what are some tips and tricks that you've seen in your years in the profession kind of helping runners out here?
So in general, the answer to overall experimenting is don't do it, right? Stick with what's tried and true. Stick with the things that you've tried in your training, the things that have worked well for you in the past. If you have friends or co-runners who have used KT tape and to their success, that's great. I wouldn't necessarily consider trying it on Thursday or Friday before a Saturday race, though. I think it's more important to stick with what's worked for you well. If you like a massage before a race or the race week, I think that's completely reasonable to do. Light, gentle massages. Be careful with deep tissue massages and things like that. Those can leave you a little bit sore afterwards. Stay well hydrated. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit here, but the heat's going to be an issue on Saturday. But in general, I tend to lean towards saying stick with what works. Don't try new equipment. Again, you've done the work over the past several months. Don't try to make it too fancy now. Stick with sort of the tried and true. Lace up your shoes and run. So,
yeah, it's always challenging. I think at some point, runners tend to get in their own head. As a runner yourself, myself, you kind of get oh, I've worked so hard, I'm finally here. And whether this is your first or your 10th or your 15th, whatever time, it's always you want to have the best experience when you're out there. And maybe not everyone's training's gone the way they are, or they would prefer it to be, and you're just trying to find that, that magic whatever to kind of get yourself there. And KT tape tends to be one of those things that I see a lot of. A lot of runners come to group training, and all of a sudden their knee wasn't taped up, it's taped up. Right. I'm sure if a runner's going to do that, going to see a professional or contact somebody would be ideal in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to use things like that, I think, KT tape specifically, there are certain ways to do it and there's certain ways not to do it. It's not just taping your knee up. There's certain patterns that you should use based on what the injury or what the condition is. So yeah, having a professional, whether that's your physical therapist or somebody like that who has used it before and knows what they're doing on how to apply it is really important to do. So.
And you also touched on the on a massage. I had a lot of runners going, oh, should I go get a massage this weekend? And you said that deep tissue can really cause more issues because you also you're releasing some of those toxins into the body, and you'll feel sore. I mean, I remember getting one. You're like, oh wow. The day after, you're like, holy smokes, I didn't. Why am I so sore? I should feel good. But it's kind of talk about when you do get a massage, kind of what the body's going through and what runners should be aware of in this case.
Yeah, so sort of a light general sports massage, you're just looking to loosen up a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Race week, I think that's perfectly fine to do. If you're doing a deep tissue massage, you're really trying to break up some of the muscle tissue there. Right. A deep tissue massage is going to cause some muscle injury, not unlike a hard effort on the if you're doing a track workout, you get some muscle injury, you're going to have some delayed muscle soreness, and the motivation or the benefit to that massage comes not the day after or even 2 days later. It comes as the body has an opportunity to respond to that stimulus. So it takes a few days. So you can potentially cause some damage that you're not recovered from if you jump into something like that today or tomorrow.
Yes, maybe save that deeper tissue massage for Sunday.
Exactly. Yeah, Sunday or Monday, depending on how you feel.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, but also be mindful if you are getting that post-run or post-race massage. I think communicating to your therapist or massage therapist to tell them that you have run.
Exactly.
And so they can be aware of where to work a little less or be more gentle.
Right.
Cause any kind of injury on a massage table would not be ideal.
Yeah.
Again, runners, shout outs, questions, please leave those in the chat. Want to hear where you're listening from. I know a lot of people are heading out to the RBC Brooklyn Half pre-party out in Brooklyn this morning to get their bibs. Maybe you're out there checking us out, or you're at home. Maybe you're on lunch. If you're here in the New York City, you're on the East Coast, getting some food, getting hydrated. Again, we will talk about the warming trend we are seeing as spring lasts about 4 hours, and summer's coming in like a hot bucket here on Saturday and Sunday, folks. But we will get into that shortly. But I know, the other thing is, people always feel like in the taper period, runners begin to feel things they never felt before. And is it a mental? Is it a physical? It could be both. You're kind of on the ups and downs, especially if it's your first time going through a training cycle, whether it be 8, 10, or 12 weeks. Talk about those phantom pains and how to distinguish what is, I won't say real or not, but what is soreness as opposed to an injury or a potential, what could be something more to be concerned about. For again, any of our runners out there, talk about through distinguishing what those pain points are, what to watch for now, and even as we move into the race.
Right. So lots of runners experience what we call phantom pain. And that's not to say that it's not real pain or discomfort. It can oftentimes be more of a psychological, anxiety-related discomfort, or it can be a true injury from training. And sometimes it's difficult to know which of those it is. The taper period is what you're doing in the taper period is you're letting your body recover. Things happen during the recovery process. Muscle cells are adapting, they're changing. You're getting a little bit of almost difficult to totally pinpoint, but the cells are becoming a little stagnant, right? They're not doing anything either. They're just recovering and sitting there. You haven't been running day in and day out. So you start to feel those changes. You may feel a little bit bloated. You may feel a little bit sluggish. You may feel tired and fatigued from that. And those are all real issues that happen during the taper period, and that's part of why we taper, is to allow the body that chance to recover. And it shouldn't always feel great, but it should feel better and better as the days go by and you get closer to the race day. Real sort of injury type related pain is a little bit different oftentimes. One of the ways you can tell the difference between the two, or at least sort of rest assured with those, is go for that light, easy run. Go out for, on an off day, if you don't do well with off days, which lots of people don't, we know that, go for a 10 or 15 minute easy jog. Talk to your coach about it first. But, so in the taper period, when you shut down, you feel sluggish a lot of times. We see that in runners, we see that in cyclists, endurance athletes in general. Your body is so adapt to 2 to 3 months of progressively increasing volume and training. You're always in this sort of steady state of fatigue, even when you're recovering. And when you shut it all down, it can feel funny, and that's a normal response. And that's okay. You just sort of have to trust the process, stay well hydrated, rest.
There it is.
Just trust the process, and go through it, and realize that as the race day comes, you've done the work. And the other thing is anxiety. If you're a little bit anxious about the race, you get a lot of muscle tension. You get a lot of, and that muscle tension can start to feel not too different from aches and pains of muscle soreness or even a muscle injury. So.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and weather can cause anxiety.
Exactly.
When you're training through a certain time frame, you're like, wait, I wasn't expecting that on race day. We can't control that, and that does. Yeah. And children can cause anxiety. As a parent yourself, I'm a parent myself.
Yeah, they can.
Tapers can always. It's always great when you have a young child who wants to cause you some more anxiety.
Exactly. You start to feel like that run was your peace and quiet period in life, and not the stressful period in life.
So parents out there, we feel the pain there, the taper period. If you have young children, especially if you're cooped up these days where getting outside can be, get that out there. Yeah, again, as Todd mentioned, trust the process, just relax, breathe, find the positive. I think right now, just getting outside it could be a walk, it could be a light jog. I mean, the work is done. At this point of your training cycle, you've done the work to get to where you are. Physically, you're not going to help yourself in terms of getting faster, getting quicker, make yourself any better on race day. Now it's just trying to get the body and the mind kind of align and take it all back and relax and get to the start line feeling as fresh as you can.
Exactly.
And then once you're there, you'll go through it. But again, runners, questions and shout outs. I know we have some coming in, so we're going to jump to some questions here real quick, see what we got going on here. I know that's always good. Alexander, due to injury, I haven't been able to train as much as I wanted. My longest run was about 9. What advice would you give someone who was, I would say, underprepared? I mean, 9 miles is still really good in terms of half marathon training, especially if you look at some time on your feet. Runners who have kind of gone through this, I mean, the training cycles is different for everybody, but we all have bumps in the road. Very seldom do we have a perfect training cycle. And, in Alexander's case, what kind of tips would you have, helping her out in this case? I mean, I think 9 miles is great. What do you think?
So do I. Yeah, I think 9 miles is fantastic. The first thing I would say is relax and enjoy the race. A lot of times the planned training, doesn't come out the way we planned on it to go. And in fact, rarely, if ever, does it. Life gets in the way, regardless of your level of runner, and injuries and other things. So go into the race just planning on having fun and enjoy it. See how you feel in those first few miles. Start out a little bit slow, which is probably a good idea anyway with the weather forecast, and see how it goes. Sometimes these injuries and these days turn into your best races.
That's fantastic.
You come in a little bit fresher than you would have been had you done the training as planned. So, and maybe the 9 mile run was a great run, and you got a lot of benefit out of it instead of just slogging through fatigued miles for months on end. So
yeah, I mean, I know Coach Roberto likes to say, he'd rather go into a race, a mile undertrained than 10 miles 10 miles overtrained, because at that point you'll feel fresh.
Yeah, exactly. It's always better to be a little bit fresher and a little bit undertrained than it is to be overtrained. Overtrained takes much longer to get over. So
yeah, because again, I mean, last thing you want to do is get to the start line and then get through the first 3 or 4 miles and you just feel like your legs are toast. And it's not because you didn't hydrate or get the nutrition right. It's just because your body is you've overspent, and it's saying, you know what, today's not the day. So Alexandra, the injury hopefully wasn't too bad. You didn't specify what that was. Hopefully it was nothing horrible. Hopefully it's feeling a little bit better today. Long run was 9 miles. I mean, we do a lot of our runs by time for group training and TFK here. So I mean, if you're on your feet for, 9 miles could be anywhere from maybe a 10-minute mile, hour and a half, or a little more. Your time on your feet's good. I think you'll surprise yourself. I think as Todd mentioned, trust it. You may surprise yourself when you get out there. You may feel fresher and more peppy, and you're going to be the one on Ocean Parkway passing everybody on the way down to Coney Island, hot dogs and beer. So. What you want, a good race out there, Alexander. Have at it.
Yeah, best of luck.
Swatha or Swatha, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Any exercises to help with shin and calf pain while running? Those are always a challenge. We have shin splints are always fun.
Yeah, so during the race specifically, at this time, probably not a whole lot, other than, you it's okay to run through those typically unless it's getting particularly severe. But, in general, I'm a big proponent of just walking on your toes and your heels is great. Walking backwards on your toes and your heels. Those are easy exercises to do in between runs or during a warm-up, trying to loosen up. They really help strengthen those muscles quite a bit. Most of the patients I see for shin splints in the office, I put them on some sort of program that involves those exercises. And then stretching your heel cords, and by that we mean, your Achilles tendon, the calf muscles, both the deep and superficial calf muscles, and your plantar fascia, and keeping all that stretched out. But yeah, just walking, 10, 15 yards on your toes and heels is a great way to strengthen those muscles and help in the long term with that. If it's continuing beyond that, it probably should be looked at some point, just to make sure it's nothing more serious. But as long as it's not getting too bad, you can keep running on that stuff. So,
compression sleeve, socks, helpful, not helpful in this case? I mean, we have some questions on that before.
So, There's certainly no reason not to try them.
Okay.
You know, it's if you haven't used them before, it's probably not the time to try them, which we'd mentioned earlier. But yeah, I do have some people who do really well with compression with that stuff.
So after you did some strength exercises, some work,
exactly. And while you're running, adding, you know, whether it's the sleeve or the sock, certainly doesn't hurt, and it's worth a try. It's definitely worth a try. I have a lot of patients who do very well with that. So
very good. Hopefully everything is okay. Hopefully you have a great race out there. Hopefully you don't have to stop on Ocean to stretch out, but if you do, you know, toes and heels, you know, head, shoulders, and toes, but make it all work out there. Best of luck. Stephen, what are the benefits of a cool down run? Is a cool down recommended after every run or only after a hard effort? And what intensity would be appropriate?
So it's always good to kind of cool down, if you will. It's always good to ease back on the running at the end, whether that's a brisk walk. You know, certainly on track sessions, it's good to do. You don't want to go from super high intensity, hard effort to nothing right away. You know, it just helps your legs feel a little bit better, and truthfully, it probably helps you recover a little bit more from the exercise afterwards, or from the workout afterwards. I know I always, you know, when you're inside of the house, I always kind of jog it in as opposed to sprinting in these days. So, you know, then you can talk a little bit easier after the race or after the run too. You're not out of breath.
Yeah, so. I usually, like when I do a tempo run, or if I'm working with our group trainers during the week and we're done with a tempo run, you know, I tell people to keep moving. Don't just come to a dead stop when you're done, whether it be a walk. I mean, I usually, it doesn't have to be another mile. I mean, again, depending on what the training plan, I have seen training plans, I've done them myself, where you want a good warm up before those hard efforts, and you want that good cool down. I mean, I've seen it cool down anywhere. It shouldn't be long. I mean, usually a mile and a half may be a little bit strong, especially depending on how hard the effort was. I mean, sometimes you don't really have much. You work hard. I mean, you don't want to be at a 10 when you're doing your hard efforts. Obviously, not where you want to be, but depending on the conditions or how you're feeling that day, the cool down. But yeah, I mean, you know, a quarter mile, a half mile, or an extra 5 or 10 minutes, whatever the case is, you know, just to kind of bring everything kind of back down, center yourself after those hard efforts is really good. There is definitely a benefit to that. It kind of brings everything, it kind of recalibrates. I like to kind of resets me after the hard effort. Sometimes if you come to a dead stop, you know, you're still pumping all this blood and you may get lightheaded as things pool again in different spots. Usually after a longer run, I mean, there's not much to, I mean, I usually walk after my long runs a little bit, you know, after I've done, you know, hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever it is, and, you know, stop my watch. If I'm tracking myself, or if I hit my end point, whether I, you know, destination run, I will walk a little bit. Sometimes to a convenience store to grab a Gatorade or water if I'm not carrying anything.
That's a great way to do it.
You know, to kind of keep, if you have something to drink, just kind of walk it off. You know, a walk off is good. That's why in races we have that post-race walk off. Is to do that. You kind of give yourself a body your chance to kind of come down. And from an intensity standpoint, it should be, you know, leveled. If you're running by an effort level, a 2-3. So either a really super light jog, a run walk, or just a straight walk at that point to kind of reset, bring it back down again, you know, because you don't want to, it's coming to that dead stop, you know, definitely could have some effects and changes on that. But runners, great questions. Keep leaving those questions, those shout outs in. We're going to jump back into things that may happen, you know, either right when the race is starting off, what we're going through. We will touch upon our lovely weather forecast a little bit. Wasn't really hoping this weather. I'm not a warm weather. Do you prefer colder or warm weather, or what, do you have a preference, or just it works both ways for you?
A little bit both ways. I don't mind the heat quite as much, but you know, I've had some bad days in the heat, like everybody who's run enough has. So.
Yeah, heat's one of those things you can't peel off a jacket. You know. I mean, you can't pull your skin off, and if you're a heavy sweater like I am, it definitely can have some impact on that. Yeah, actually, and we just talked about it a little bit more. You know, we talked about the cool down. So, what about before the race? You know, runners are coming through, they're dropping their bags, they're going through the security checkpoint, they're getting in the corrals. Warming up before the race, what kind of things can runners look at that can maybe, you know, it's going to be warm, so warming up is going to be, we'll put that in quotes today because it will be warm, but what's some exercise, some ideas we can have the runners
Exactly, yeah. So the weather plays an interesting role in that question because it is going to be pretty warm, you know. On a colder day, you certainly want to go for that little jog. You want to keep moving around. You know, the staging races where everybody's clumped together for a while before the start can be tough. There's a crowd. You know, these days everybody's still trying to keep their distance, which makes it even a little bit more difficult as far as the crowd and spacing. But it's good to get out and loosen up a little bit. You know, if you don't do that, then you certainly want to take those first few miles to gradually pick up the pace. And in a larger race, that's oftentimes is the warm up, is those first couple miles after the gun goes off. But it's good to even just some light jogging, a little bit of light stretching. You don't have to do any hard stretching. You know, in general, stretching quite a bit beforehand can almost have a negative effect instead of a positive effect. But doing some light stretching and a little bit of light jogging in place, or just around, or brisk walking around or something to get the blood moving a little bit, to keep you from feeling too sluggish right when the gun goes off, and then ease into the start, particularly this weekend because of the weather. Everybody should probably take a look at it more from the perspective of getting to the finish line than getting to the PR this weekend, and see how it goes. Sometimes that works out really well on both ends, but so.
Yeah, I think, Debbie, being conservative, easy out there, runners, to start the race. This is a downhill start. If you've not run this race before, Washington Avenue is downhill. So everyone will queue up, whether you're wave 1 or wave 2. You will queue up on Eastern Parkway, and then they will walk you down the start lines, just past the Brooklyn Museum, right before the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. There's a parking lot. You'll see the beautiful start line. That's where the start line will be. And then Washington Avenue is a downhill. So I think to your point, you kind of use that first mile or so. It will be crowded. Don't be bobbing and weaving, trying to get around everybody, dodging the traffic. If you're running with one of the NYRR pace teams, they'll be out there. They have blue and white singlets on. They will be carrying these pace signs. One side will have the pace per mile they're going for. One will be the goal time, which actually will be 30 seconds under that. They'll be out there in the corrals. They'll also will be at the pre-party and the running lab. So please stop by and see our pace team. But if you're running with one of them, they will keep you in control, making sure that that first mile is not your fastest mile, even if it is a downhill, kind of using that to kind of stretch the legs out a little bit. Because, the first 10K of this course, it has most of your elevation ups and downs. But once you kind of get out of Prospect Park on Ocean Parkway, you do have a nice 10K-ish of flat running, pretty exposed, but we'll be out there. But obviously, once the gun goes off, a runner's out there, if it so happens that a runner does feel some discomfort at that point, Todd, what are some signs they should be looking for in terms of, can I go on? Should I stop? There will be medical tents out there, runners, so don't worry. If you do have to seek medical attention, you will be able to find that. But as runners go through that, sometimes in your head you can play with that. What feels good? What shouldn't? What are some of the signs that runners should look for, both just body-wise, but definitely with the heat? There's the hydration part of it, and you get dehydrated, and even overhydrating is that side of the coin also. So kind of walk us through what are some things a runner should watch out for.
So that's a great question, and particularly this weekend, there's almost two sides to that. The first one being, if you have a little injury or nagging ache or pain, what do you have to watch out for? Do you need to seek medical attention, or can you keep going? And the first thing I would say is just slow down a little bit and see how it feels. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to have that injury that keeps you from running in this race. Those don't happen all that often, but they can. Red flags to watch for as you dial it back if the pain's still there, if it's getting worse. If you're starting to change the way you run, running with a limp or changing your running gait to favor an injury is a big red flag, right? That's we tell patients this all the time. That's the red flag where you have to stop running. We let you run through a lot of stuff, particularly on race day. But if it's changing the way you run, and that's not necessarily because of the injury that's doing it, but you can end up with other injuries as well, just because you change the biomechanics of your running significantly enough that you can overload something that was not going to be an issue. So certainly, if you feel something aching or you're a little bit concerned, dial back. You can even walk for a little bit.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. I think every runner has walked for part of a race.
I've walked in this race, actually.
There you go.
Fortunately, Ocean Park was very warm in about 2015 or 16, and I was like, the heck with it. I'm going to take a break here. I'm just done.
So, and then the heat factor. So the heat is, another big issue. And, as far as continuing to run or not running, some of that, the first thing is stay well hydrated. Right. Okay. You mentioned overhydration. There are issues with overhydration. You shouldn't be drinking a gallon of water every day leading up to the race. You want to stay well hydrated. You don't need to overdo it. And then you need to stay well hydrated race morning out there.
Yeah.
And during the race, make sure you're getting plenty of fluids. Don't skip aid stations to get a PR. It's not going to work out in your favor. You're not going to get the PR doing it that approach. And you can get into a lot of trouble doing that. So stay very well hydrated. As far as the heat, if you're feeling really bad, again, it's okay to walk. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to stop and talk to the people at the medical tent and have somebody take a look at you. Okay? Yeah. Stopping at the medical tent to be checked and see if you're okay doesn't mean you're going to get pulled out of the race.
Correct.
The physicians and nurses and therapists and EMTs and medics and everybody who's out there helping you wants to see you finish. So if you have a question, stop and ask.
Yeah.
You know, and then if there's real serious issues with heat, unfortunately, a lot of times the runner doesn't know that, which is another issue.
Yeah, they won't know the signs until
right,
almost too late.
Yeah. Those are the ones where,
out.
exactly, those are the ones where the medical staff and other runners need to keep their eyes out too.
Right.
You know, if you see that person who's wobbly and unsteady or things don't seem quite right, point it out to the medical staff on the way by. You know, because heat issues aren't something people always recognize themselves. You know, you may feel bad going into it, but when it gets really serious, a lot of times they don't know it. So.
2019, I was cheering the race on. My wife ran it. She had plantar fasciitis, and you go back to the altering your gait. And you know, we talked about that very closely. I say, look, you can go ahead and do it, but just try to keep your gait, because the biomechanics. I mean, I talk to runners a lot. Like, oh, my left knee is bothering me. Something's going on there. I'm like, well, it could be actually something further up or down the chain, depending if you're altering if your ankle, your right ankle, your hip, you have lower back issues. So it's always not always what you think it is. And on race day, you're just trying to get yourself to the finish line at that point. So you're kind of make your way through it, but get it checked out afterward. But also in 2019, I remember I was cheering on at the Triangle as runners come in and out of Prospect Park. And I remember vividly, a lot of us coaches were there, and this runner was coming down the park, and she walked off the course and onto the grass, and within 3 seconds, she had fallen down face first and passed out. Yeah. And it was, to your point, 2019 was a warmer day, and this runner, thankfully, that wasn't on the course when it happened. She had stepped off, but within seconds, she was done. She was faint in the body, had passed out, and so we, the coaches, we're all CPR and AD trained. We were on the horn trying to find medical attention as fast as we could, but we got her cooled down. There was some ice in the area, got on the back of her neck. We were able to get, she was fine, but it definitely was a scary moment as a spectator.
It is.
The runners don't always see that when they come through. So, always check yourself, runners. Be mindful. I mean, this is not to be, fearful or put the fear of God in anybody out there, but just really pay attention to yourself out there. Take a walk break. I said in about 2015, 2016, it was another warm day. I did take walk breaks later because I was like, you know what? It's not going to be the day that I wanted. I'm not going to risk anything for a medal, for a bag. I want to go home and see my loved ones at the end of the day. So always play the smart call. And speaking of the hydrations out there on course, AJ, if you could bring up the course map, I put it up here. I want to point out to runners who maybe did not join us in our course strategy at 10 o'clock, but put it out there. I'll circle where up. We have 9 aid stations out there on the course. I will circle some of them up here. There's a bunch up here in Prospect Park. The one right here, 10, all through here. You'll see these up there. As Todd mentioned, this is not the day to skip an aid station. This is the day where you want to hit all 9 of these, preferably. Even if it's just a quick, if you're not drinking too much electrolytes, swish around your mouth, spit it out, get water, drink a little bit. Don't drink the whole cup. Maybe even dunk some on your head at this point. Put them on the pulse points. We talked about this earlier in the week to cool yourself down. The wrist, inside the elbows, back of the neck. Hit those points where it's going to help you cool down a little bit faster when you're out there. They said there are 9 aid stations out there, runners. Do not miss those as you come out of Prospect Park, and definitely we got Ocean Parkway because there will not be a whole lot of shade. Not very tall buildings, very tall trees at this point. So hit those aid stations out there, even if it's just to grab a splash and go. If you're carrying your own water out there, take a little bit extra, take a little bit of hydration with you, more than you may think you may need, as well as gels out there. But all good information, because definitely we want to see you get down there. And again, runners, as you get to the finishing part of the race, you're going to walk through. There will be the walk-off, the cool-down. The medical teams will be out there in full force checking you out there as they want to make sure that you are safe. As a runner comes through, the finish line, they've gotten to Coney Island. Congratulations. Heck of a job, 13.1 miles. First time, it's an automatic PR. Congratulations. But again, you may not feel good. Some runners come through. As the body shifts, the blood begins to move. You get lightheaded a little bit. What are some things that the runners need to, be aware of? Again, the medical teams will be out there. There'll be a lot of other runners out there. What things should runners be kind of aware of as they come through, if they kind of feel that lightheaded or woozy, kind of feeling? So
one thing is keep moving.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep moving through the line. If there are, there's usually, at most of these events, there's usually somebody putting a medal around your neck. It's okay to put your arm around them and have them help you, okay? Nobody's going to be too upset about that. People handing out water, take the water bottle, start drinking, but keep moving. We do see there are conditions where in heat and after exertion, people stop suddenly and they pass out.
Yeah.
That certainly happens. If it does at the finish line, the medical team will obviously help out. But if you keep moving, that keeps it keeps engaging those muscles in your lower legs, keeps the blood flow going, or the blood return coming back up, and it can help prevent some of that. So the big thing: start drinking some fluids, keep moving around. don't fall over the finish line if you don't have to. And then also, there's other runners around and stuff like that. So, just keep your head up and try not to bump into other people too. But
look out for yourself, look out for other runners.
Exactly. Yeah.
Take care of each other out there. It's a wonderful community. Make sure you're looking out. If you see something, a good friend of ours, it made social media last year at the TCS New York City Marathon. One of our coaches was out there literally in the finishing straight. They're about 100 yards from the finish line, and a runner went down in a heap. And a coach of ours, Coach Craig, and another runner picked this runner up. They were moving. They were sub 320. This was not like they were even. I don't care what the pace is. These runners stopped to help somebody because they put themselves before. They put this runner before themselves. They think we want to help this person in any way. So the runners will watch out for yourselves. Watch out for yourselves out there. Take care of each other. If you see something, if you see something, say something. There are medical staffs out there. If you say, hey, runner back there, blue top, whatever color, give the medical a team. If you see something, alert them so they know they can look out for them. Because again, we all want to get home safely to our loved ones out there. As you come through the finish line, you're going to get a bag from our partner at HSS. It will have Gatorade, it will have Flow water, it will have pretzels, it will have an apple. There will be some science and sports stuff in there as well. Start ingesting those foods. Begin that. I would say recovery begins the second you finish that race. Get to it. The Hss Recovery Zone will be there. I know people go in there, they want to get a rub down, roll out of the foam rollers, get a quick massage. Our medical tents will be out there if you need to get ice. Our safety team is on top of this, runners, so don't worry. They will make sure that we have the safest conditions for the weather we're going to have when we're out there on course, whether in the beginning, on course, after course. They will make sure that we have everything is needed to safely get us through those 13.1 miles, but more importantly, get you home. But definitely take a look out for each other. Get out there. If we have any more questions coming through, Sam, we have a couple more questions. We hit some questions, runners. Hit it down. That's what we got here. We have Paul. Nurse and a knee injury, never like to hear that. Most likely a knee replacement. It messes with the gait. We talked about that. We have a run. Any tips on wrapping it before the race? That's got a lot going on there. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah. So first off, great. I think it's fantastic that people are still running, and keeping it up. Yes, your gait, it probably alters your gait when you walk as well if you're that close to a knee replacement, particularly partial. But using a compressive knee sleeve or something like that in these cases is a great option. If you've trained with a brace specifically for your knee condition, there's nothing wrong with continuing to run in it. I do have runners who wear knee braces. I have others who don't like them when they run. It's really a personal preference on that. But I think adding that little bit of compression and support in these conditions is great. I typically recommend that if you're wearing some sort of compressive knee sleeve for conditions like this, you leave it on for about a half hour after the run. And then take it off and put ice immediately on your knee to help keep it from getting too inflamed or sore afterwards. So.
Great job, Paul. Best of luck out there. Have a great race, and best of luck with the knee replacement as well. We have Hannah. Any tips for dealing with pain on the outside and back of the knee? Oh, the IT band. An ever popular KT tape, the Kinesio tape is always helping pain relief. We talked about that a bit more. Knee issues always, the IT band, that was a tricky one. I had an issue years ago with that. So, what do we got here for Hannah?
Yeah, a lot of it's really trying to strengthen around it and stretch around it. We have people foam roll quite a bit, both your hamstring and quadricep muscles around the IT band. The KT tape, again, for the race, if you've used it before and you have somebody who knows how to put it on very well, or if you've been shown how to do it, a lot of times they'll show you and you can continue to do it yourself. I think that's completely reasonable to do. If you've never done it, I probably wouldn't start Saturday morning. And then, moving forward, I have a lot of patients who do well with things like the Bulgarian squats or just to help strengthen that area and load it a little bit in the long term. In the short term, for the race, you kind of have to manage the symptoms a little bit. So, if it's getting worse and not better, come see one of us, and we can talk about long term what to do for it. So.
Definitely good. I remember at the United Airlines NYC half, I remember running, and a runner was obviously trying KT tape for the first time, never used before, and they were off the side of the road pulling it off in anger because it was irritating them. But I think to your point, if you haven't used it before, it's that ever popular nothing new on race day. But also as a runner, as an athlete, you put so much effort, and there's so much emotional effort, physical effort, mental effort to get yourself to the starting line. You want to finish. It's a goal for a lot of us, whether it's your first or 10th, whatever it is. To finish what you started or what you're trying to get through. And so I remember this person was just ripping it off. He was upset, and I was like, that's a classic example of trying something, didn't quite work out. Again, pull off to the side, take it off, but Hannah, all the best. Hopefully everything's okay when you get out there on race day. We'll see you in Coney Island. You get hot dogs and beer when you get down there, but all the best. Radcore, any tips to avoid side stitches? It's always a tough one. I mean, there's always stuff going on there. What do you?
Yeah.
It's a hydration.
It is a tough one. I mean, muscle cramping in general can be exertional. It can be hydration. The main thing is to kind of maintain good hydration status. Make sure that you're getting some electrolytes in as well.
Potassium possibly here too. I mean, I'm a big banana eater.
It may be sodium, maybe potassium.
Okay.
I don't think anybody has ever really determined very well what the underlying cause is, which is probably why it's always an issue for everybody.
It's like Bigfoot.
But,
no, it really exists. But
exactly. Yeah. So we know it exists. We've all experienced it. But I think preventative-wise, maintaining good hydration status with electrolytes is a good way to do it. Once it happens, just dialing back the pace or the effort a little bit. Try, get some fluids in at the aid station and relax. Try to control your breathing a little bit. Drop that, that relative perceived exertion.
Yeah.
Drop that down a couple of numbers and see how you feel. And a lot of times they will go away. Don't panic about it. But yeah, it's just maintaining good electrolyte status is probably the best option on that one.
Right. A walk break works out well too here, and that form, keep that body upright. I mean, as we fatigue, again, if we've runners think that we can run and it will strengthen every part of our body that we need. It does strengthen our lower bodies, but it is that core. And I really work, the runners that I work with in group training here in New York City, we have that, we do strength work after everything from squats to lunges to stretching, but we do core work, and we have, standing core work, we do planks, if you're good at flutter kicks, there's that area between like the mid thigh, right below the diaphragm, because that's, when you fatigue, your body's going to start to sag into itself, and then all of a sudden, all that's you're compressing the diaphragm all the way to the side, and all of a sudden, like, that's sometimes what happens. Or if you can keep your body upright, keep those shoulders back and relaxed, keep that air, the oxygen flowing, and then stay on top of hydration. Maybe could be trying to avoid the side stitches are there, but definitely if you're pushing harder, that's going to definitely, you're using different muscle groups and you're pushing more, dial the RPE back just a skosh and you'll be good to go. But Radcore, all the best out there, and hopefully you have a great race on Saturday. Silvana, any warm-up or stretching exercises for the sciatica? Wow, that's I had to think of that before the race. So what do you think? That's lower back area, like
it can be low. There's a few different things that can cause sciatica. It can be lower back. It can be gluteal muscle issues. It can, various things down the chain. It's essentially anything that's causing some compression on that sciatic nerve.
Gotcha.
So stretching out the core region a little bit. Doing some lumbar stretching, gluteal stretching, and just kind of loosening up lightly. And then easing into it, not going too hard right out from the gun. Don't push those early hills too much, and just take it easy. And it should do okay. I would treat it similar to how you've treated it during your training runs and things like that as well. So,
Silvana, all the best. Hopefully it works out for you. Have a great race out there. Carl, sometimes after long, hot runs and races, I'm lightheaded. There we go with temporary blindness, especially at the finish line. It seems to clear up. Yeah, those are some of the things that we pointed out earlier, watching out some of these warning signs.
Right.
What could be going on with Carl? I mean, the lightheadedness, we kind of talked about, the temporary blindness. I've heard this before. Are you familiar with this, or kind of what's going on
the
here?
Same. I've heard people complain of it before. It certainly can be related to just a little dehydration, a little, what we term almost a near syncopal type event, where you're close to being that runner who passes out at the finish line, but you're not. It's sort of the body doesn't quite get to that level. That may be what's going on. There can be a few different issues, certainly. I would say maintain good hydration status on this one. Pay attention to your body. Take it a little bit easy on Saturday. If you've had issues like this in the past on your long runs, it's good that you're aware of them and you understand it and sort of know about it and know what to expect. So go in with a plan ahead of time to take it a little bit easy. Again, don't skip those aid stations. We talked about that a little bit. Get plenty of fluids in, and keep moving at the finish line. It's okay to keep jogging even at the finish line a little bit. You don't have to go from running to stopping. You can work your way down a little bit. There's usually room by that point in the race. So,
and running by effort is also going to help you out, especially on these hotter runs or races. I mean, we all have a lot of runners wear tracking devices. Apple Watch, Garmin, Polar. They have their phones, whatever they're using. This is probably the day to kind of don't look at that. I'm trying to go 1:45, so I got to be on 8 minutes per mile. Definitely start off a little bit slower, because if you know kind of what your body feels like at the effort you want to go for, you'll notice that pretty quickly that it may feel a bit harder on Saturday just because the conditions are going to be more taxing because your body's trying to cool itself in these conditions. So it's going to be sweating a bit more. It's not uncommon to have the elevated heart rate a little bit there. So really check the effort out. Do the talk test. I mean, if you're having a hard time getting just like 1 or 2 or 3 words out, that means you're probably at an effort level that's well above where you can sustain for anything longer than probably a 5K at that point. And if you're at mile 5, you're just cresting Battle Pass Hill on Prospect Park and you're already in that mode, really reassess where you are, bring it back a little bit, because definitely lightheadedness. As I said before, we had that runner in 2019 pass out, and she was definitely at the level at that point. And this is gonna be one of those days where it's like, you got to just check it. We talked earlier in a previous core strategy at 10 a.m. with Coach Roberto and Matt from New Balance. A, B, and C goals in this case may be something you want to do. So come by the running lab.
That's great. Yeah.
We're at the pre-party. As you pick up your bib, come back to the running lab. Our coaches and pace team will be there. We will have pace bands that will give you a finish time. It will give you the per mile times for 1 through 13, both in miles and kilometers. So the kilometers will be up for 1 to 21. So you can grab some pace bands, have those on your wrist for the A, B, and C goals. Stick to that so you have some game plans out there. But all the best, Carl. Next up, Francisco, are headphones allowed during the race? The short answer is yes.
I'm going to let you field that one.
Yeah, I will take that one. Definitely, yes, they are, but we do have the caveat, you keep that volume down, or if you can take one headphone out, have one ear open. For a multitude of reasons, we want to make sure you can hear things around you, other runners passing you, as well as safety vehicles or safety instructions. You want to make sure that you're not just so in your own bubble, in your own world out there, that you can't hear other things around you. In the event that there is a situation where there's a medical vehicle or announcements are being made for the race at some point, or just to simply hear other runners. You could be going through through a water station to get water, and you'll hear a runner say, I'm stopping, or on your left, and you come to a complete stop, and that runner does not, and they hit you behind you both go down. So if you are going to wear headphones, either keep that volume very low where you're able to hear things around you, or only put one earphone in and put the other one in the pocket so you definitely have awareness of what's going on around you, because we want you to have the safest and best experience out there, Francisco. We have Jess. Most of my training runs have been done in 40 to 55 degree weather. Welcome to what we just have been going through the last 10 weeks. Any tips to prevent cramps, overheating during the race? We've kind of touched on this. But Todd, I mean, again, this is such a race that no one has, we had a runner from Dallas this morning, so that person's ready. But if you've been up here, I mean, it's been a pretty mild spring to this point. We had a couple of days that have been kind of warm, but nothing that we're going to see. So again, if you've trained in this, what are some tips for preventing cramps and overheating? We're talking about hydration. Anything else? Yeah.
So the one thing is, as you said, everybody's trained in these conditions essentially. Everybody in the Northeast has had this sort of cool-ish spring, a couple warmer days here and there, and then it gets cold again. I feel like I was wearing a ski hat at my son's lacrosse practice 2 weeks ago,
I think we were.
and shivering. So the idea of running in near 90-degree weather is a little bit daunting. But there are things you can do to try and prevent cramps and to prevent the heat issues. There's things you can do before the race, and there's things you can do during the race. We touched a lot on the stuff during the race already a little bit. Maintaining, dialing the pace back and maintaining your hydration status is a big one. Stopping at the aid stations, making sure you're getting some fluids in, something with some degree of sodium in it as well, and a little bit of carbohydrate. So whatever the energy drink is, I'm not sure what's on course.
A Gatorade will be on course for all the runners out there. So again, take that, and then we have Science and Sport, which is our new gel sponsor, will be at 6.8. But that goes into nothing new on race day. If you've been training with honey stingers or goo or any other blocks out there, stay with that. But grab something for sure. Yeah, and grab something. Bring something with you if you've got something that that works. Particularly if you have a stomach that doesn't tolerate everything. And then before the race, there are things you can do to try and help a little bit as well. When you're sipping on that bottle before the race, that's the time to have cold water. Fill it with ice beforehand. I know some people like to do the ice slurry, where you're actually kind of chewing on, crushed ice and water and things like that. If you have access to that, that's great to do in that little bit beforehand. You don't need to overload with this stuff, but getting a little bit to just start cooling off. If you're packing a little bit of a bag with you or have some old towels you don't really care about that you want to throw in a bag with you before the race morning, it's not a bad idea to throw those in the freezer damp the night before and then just drape it over your head for 20 minutes before the start of the race or something. It certainly helps at least a little bit to start off cold. Yeah.
You know, and it's tough to do when it's 80 degrees out, but if you can make the immediate environment around you a little bit colder, that'll certainly help a little bit. And then starting off slow.
Yeah.
You know, again, see how the day goes. Start off easy, and then, you know, either start off easy and speed up, or start off easy and slow down, you know, depending on how it's going.
It's going to be one of those days. If you have loved ones out there as well, runners, you know, maybe, you know, pre-plan out, hey, I'll be on Ocean, because again, on Ocean Parkway, you have avenues, they go from A to Z at a certain point. So if you say, hey, be at Avenue J, off to the side, you know, have a new handheld for me with, you know, it's colder water in there, have an ice towel, maybe a new hat with something in it that's frozen. You know, if you have loved ones out there and you can use those to your advantage, maybe, you know, plan some of those logistics out now to help yourself out. But if you're going to be out there, as many of us will be, you know, on our own, you know, just take every precaution you can to keep yourself, you know, as prepared as you can. Don't miss those aid stations. You know, I can bring it up again, AJ, if you want to bring up the course map again. If for anybody who joined us late, I'll point out where our hydrations are going to be, as well as the miles where they're going to be. But again, you've got a bunch of, you have some up here, you have some here, and you have all the ones here. They're going to be on Ocean, some up here as well. But yeah, do not miss these. My drawing is horrible. I failed that in kindergarten. I'm sorry. I did not do good at finger painting either. Maybe I'll get better as the weeks go by. There are 9 aid stations out there. You know, I strongly recommend hitting just about every single one of them. There's no reason to miss them at this point, even if it's just for a little bit of a splash and go in those first, you know, 3 or so as you make your way through the first 5K. But definitely those ones in Prospect Park at the top of the hill, and as you exit out at mile 7 before 6.8, where Science and Sport will be with the gels. But at that point, anything on Ocean. You should be hitting every single one of them. You know, think of it like a local convenience store, and you got to stop and grab something, hit it every single time.
Right.
That's all she wrote, folks. Todd, any parting words of wisdom for our guests out there today?
Just stay cool and have fun, right? Enjoy it. I wish I was out there running with you guys this weekend, despite the heat. And I think it'd be fun to do. So yeah, just enjoy the process. Like I said, slow it down a little bit because of the heat, and you know that. For almost everybody out there, the training's done. You know, those little nagging aches and pains and the little nervous energy that you have this week, that's all normal. And as long as it's getting better, go out and have a good time and enjoy the run.
Yeah, definitely. The BC Boys said no sleep till Brooklyn. I like to change it up and say more sleep till Brooklyn out there, runners.
Yeah.
Get some rest, get off your feet. A good cross-training exercise is called the couch with remote control. As you drink some water and enjoy yourself. Come on out to the pre-party. Out there in Brooklyn Bridge Park. We will be out there, looking forward to it. Grab your bib, grab your stuff, hit the New Balance store, grab that swag you plan on wearing after the race. There's nothing new on race day. Hit the running lab at the way out. Our coaches and pacers will be there. Get some core strategy, tips from the coaches and pacers that are there. Any information you want, grab some pace bands and make your way out into the pre-party. There will be live music and a stage, as well as food trucks. Hit it up, runners. Thank you so much for joining us. Todd, have a great one. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
And good luck in the run.
I'm hoping I can hit my time. I'll be out there pacing 2:05. Fingers crossed. I'm not a hot weather runner myself. Runners, have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.